even though Sarah Fitzpatrick is already being sued by Kash Patel, and even though she may be being criminally investigated by Kash Patel's FBI, tonight, The Atlantic Sarah Fitzpatrick published yet another incredible story about, ding, 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 you guessed it, Kash Patel. Now, in this one, 8 people familiar with the matter, including yet again current and former FBI officials, told Fitzpatrick that it is not unusual for Patel to travel with a supply of personalized branded bourbon. Who among us? Now, the 750 milliliter bottle that he travels with is engraved with Kash Patel's name and title, FBI Director. Classy. As well as the symbol of the FBI shield. Now, if you look just below the shield on the screen, you will see Kash Patel's name yet again, but this time spelled his preferred way, of course, with a $sign instead of an S. Again, stay classy, Kash Patel, stay classy. Patel also appears to have signed some bottles, writing his signature and then the number 9, presumably because he's the 9th person to hold the title of the director of the FBI, which leads me to believe he has spent an awful lot of time on this particular merch project, right? Now, Fitzpatrick also writes that Patel has distributed these self-branded bottles to staff and civilians while on official business, including during at least one FBI event, and that Patel has even used Justice Department aircraft to transport cases of his bourbon merch. Now, when The Atlantic reached out for comment, the FBI didn't even dispute that Patel has been giving out these branded booze bottles. Instead, a spokesperson said that Patel has followed all applicable ethical guidelines and pays for any personal gifts himself, and portrayed the gifting of booze, bourbon, personalized bourbon, as routine, saying that the bottles in question are part of a tradition in the FBI that started well over a decade ago. Is it now? And guess what? When Fitzpatrick tried to fact-check that statement, it fell completely apart. The FBI declined to provide images of bottles bearing the names of any past directors, maybe because they don't exist. And when Fitzpatrick asked a former senior FBI official if he had ever seen any personally branded liquor bottles distributed by any previous FBI directors, he burst out laughing. Now, the story here is, it's not just that Kash Patel allegedly drinks a lot. By this point, we've all seen him drinking with our own eyes. We all remember that visual. The story is that Kash Patel allegedly drinks a ton at work as the boss in a workplace that traditionally has had a zero-tolerance approach to drinking on the job and even the abuse of alcohol off-duty, because it is our chief law enforcement agency. As one former FBI agent told Fitzpatrick, the bottles are demoralizing, as they suggest one set of standards for the FBI's director and another for the rest of the bureau. Now, the lawyer for another former agent, former assistant director in charge of the FBI's Washington field office, Stephen Jensen, told Fitzpatrick, quote, "There are line agents out there spending their nights and weekends trying to finish warrants, write reports, plan arrests. Yet the FBI director apparently has the time to design logos, go to hockey games, sit for multi-hour podcast interviews. This is one of the most serious jobs in the country, not a vehicle for self-promotion and branding." That's very well stated. Now, when Fitzpatrick published her first big scoop about Kash Patel last month, part of what was so amazing about it was that she had more than 24 sources. I spoke to her that very night that the piece came out, and she told me that even more people from inside the bureau were already trying to talk to her, trying to tell her about Kash Patel. And they weren't doing that lightly.
These are not the types of people who are willing to speak out outside of the FBI, especially right now, because Kash Patel is going after people with polygraphs in a way that has never happened at the Bureau. So for it to be this level of alarm, this is people genuinely concerned that America is in danger as a result of this conduct. And I feel, a real responsibility to take care of that reporting incredibly carefully.
Sarah Fitzpatrick said that those people spoke to her last month because they worried about the safety of our country, with this guy in charge of keeping us safe. That guy right there. There you go, with Kristi Noem. And now, even with a potential criminal investigation into leakers and a massive defamation lawsuit, more people have come forward to say that they do not think Kash Patel's behavior is fit for his office. Now, I want you to just keep that story in your head. I want you to just think about how hard the FBI is working to try to catch leakers who say bad things about Kash Patel's personal behavior. And I want you to compare that to this.
Breaking news now. A very influential Democrat from Virginia, State Senator Luis Lucas, is at the center of a major FBI corruption investigation. Right now, in fact, agents are executing search warrants across the Commonwealth, including her office. Alex Hogan is in Portsmouth, Virginia. Alex.
Now, this morning, when the FBI raided the office of a prominent Democratic state official in Virginia, Fox News was on the scene. They had camera crews on location, ready to film as SWAT teams and FBI vans raided Virginia State Senator Luis Lucas's office and nearby businesses. And that is pretty impressive, considering that Portsmouth, Virginia, you can see it on the map there, is about a 3-hour drive from Fox's office in D.C. It is 200 miles away. Now, maybe Fox just got lucky. Maybe they just had a reporter around the corner just kind of hanging out in Portsmouth and a whole camera crew when the raid started. But it strikes me as a lot more plausible that someone in the FBI leaked the timing of the raid to them. Now, while Luis Lucas is a huge deal in Virginia politics, she's the Speaker of the state Senate. She's primarily known on the national stage for just one thing. Earlier this year, she led the effort to redraw the state's congressional maps, which could help Democrats win another 4 seats in the midterms and counterbalance the gerrymandering Republicans have done in other states. And the raid was reportedly part of an investigation that opened under the Biden administration that examined potential corruption and bribery. But beyond that, the Department of Justice has not released any information. Now, we don't have, as I've said, any real details on the reasoning for the raid or what exactly they're accusing Lucas of doing. So is it plausible there was actual wrongdoing by Lucas? Sure, it's plausible. But the context is everything here. Because a source familiar with the matter tells MS Now's Carol Leonnig that Trump's former U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, the district where this investigation is likely based, believed bringing a case against Luis Lucas would be good for the White House. That bringing a bribery case against a prominent Democrat before the midterms would be good for the White House. Even though other prosecutors at the office were not sure about the strength of the case. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? As Virginia's Attorney General Jay Jones put it today, we simply do not have sufficient information about the reported FBI activity in Portsmouth. However, several previous actions of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia have undermined public confidence in that office. I urge everyone to exercise restraint and judgment until the relevant facts are known in this matter. Now, there's a lot of stories going on. I just want you to keep that story in your head. I want you to think about how the FBI raided the office of a prominent Democratic lawmaker right after she did something Trump did not like, and how Fox News just happened to be there to film it. I want you to think about that and compare it to this. Because yesterday, we learned that the Justice Department has agreed to, quote, return or destroy evidence seized from MAGA Republican Congressman Andy Ogles. And if the name Andy Ogles isn't ringing any bells, it's probably because former Congressman George Santos, you remember that guy, sort of stole his thunder for a while. Because for a while, the two seem to be competing for the title of the most prolific liar in Congress. I mean, according to local Tennessee news reports, Ogles claimed to be an economist, but it turned out he had only ever actually taken one single community college economics course, and he barely passed it. He claimed to have served for years on the board of directors of a city that, it turns out, does not have a board of directors at all. I could go on, but you get the point here, right? Back in 2024, the FBI seized Andy Ogles' phone as part of an investigation. You see, among the things Andy Ogles appears to have lied about were campaign contributions, a serious thing to lie about. He claimed that he had donated $320,000 to his own campaign back in 2022. But it turned out that the congressman appeared to be broke. In his financial disclosures, he did not appear to even have a checking or a savings account of any kind. Now, Ogles later admitted that he had not, in fact, donated $320,000 to his own campaign, but he never really explained why he apparently lied about all of it. And campaign contributions are serious business. There are a lot of laws involved. So the FBI seized Ogles' phone. That was at the end of 2024. But guess what? When Trump took office last year, suddenly, just 11 days into Trump's new term, the career prosecutors handling the case withdrew from it. The case was handed up to be run completely out of Main Justice in Washington, D.C. Now, at the same time, Ogles was in the running. He put himself in the running for, I should say, a new highly competitive title, biggest suck-up to Donald Trump. And he did a lot to try to get there. He introduced a bill to give Trump the power to buy Greenland. He nominated Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. And maybe most amazingly, Ogles proposed a constitutional amendment to allow Trump to serve a third term. He even specifically worded that amendment so it would only allow third terms from presidents who hadn't served 2 consecutive terms, meaning it would let Trump serve a third term, but not Obama. There you go. And now, after all that sucking up, the investigation into Ogles lying about a massive campaign contribution seems to be just quietly going away. In a vacuum, each of these stories individually are reason for concern about what is happening at the Justice Department right now. But taken together, they are a blaring alarm. And when you put them in the context of the past year, it's all the worse. The Justice Department has investigated or charged so many perceived Trump enemies, it is genuinely getting hard to track, and we may miss people in this list. Former FBI Director James Comey, former CIA Director John Brennan, New York Attorney General Letitia James, Senator Mark Kelly, Senator Alyssa Slotkin, Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander, Congressman Jason Crow, Congresswoman Christy Houlihan, Congressman Chris Deluzio, former National Security Advisor John Bolton, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook, Senator Adam Schiff, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, St. Paul Mayor Kelly Hur, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty. The list is just unfathomable at this point. But the pattern is clear. Trump is using the Justice Department to help his friends and go after his enemies. Last night, former President Barack Obama issued a stark warning on exactly this issue during an interview with Stephen Colbert.
We can survive a lot. Bad policy, funky elections. There's a bunch of stuff that, we can overcome. We can't overcome the politicization of the criminal justice system, the awesome power of the state. You can't have a situation in which whoever's in charge of the government starts using that to go after their political enemies or reward their friends.